Hello, everybody, and welcome to my podcast, Fear Fighter. I am your host, Shannan Mondor. Today's episode is a continuation of my series, You Are Not the Only One. I was brought forth to do this series because during my healing from my addiction to alcohol, there were so many times that the universe had brought me to silence. And during those times is when I learned so many things about myself, and I was guided. I was guided to talk openly about my past, my abuse, my addiction, and to speak my truth. From those moments of silence is when we learn, we grow, and then we teach and we help others. Today, I have a very special guest, Jessica Vossler, and she is here to share her story because her and I have a lot in common because we do share the addiction to alcohol. So I want to welcome Jessica.
Thank
Hello,
you.
Jessica. How are you
Hi,
doing?
Shannon. Great. How are you?
Good, good. So we talked a little bit prior to me recording this interview here, and we definitely do have a lot in common when it comes to abusing alcohol. So if you could please share with our audience your journey and what brought you to silence and stillness and what you want to share with everybody and what you've learned from that.
Yeah, for sure. Like I had mentioned before, I grew up in the industry. I've always been serving, bartending, since I was old enough to. And as with everyone else in life, we're kind of pressured to be that nightlife, like that drinking, partying. So that started when I was in my early 20s, having drinks after work. Just kind of escalated to that was the main focus of my life. Like I would sleep in, go for a late lunch, start having drinks in the afternoon, and, be primed and ready to go to work in the evening and rinse and repeat. I did that for years and years and years. I ended up actually getting engaged and moving back home to a small town, and just kind of put myself in a situation that I've never been in, where I was kind of like an instant stepmom. And that put a lot of pressure on me, to which I turned to my old friend, alcohol, to kind of numb the pain and the pressure and all the stress that I was going through. I wanted to be the best stepmom, the best partner that I could for this person, but it led me to drinking and hiding that drinking from him in that relationship, and eventually kind of tore a relationship apart. In a last ditch effort to save that relationship, I did go to treatment. I went away for a month to treatment. The thing that they tell you in treatment is to make sure that you have a support system when you leave, to continue going to meetings and things like that. I thought that I had everything all set up the way that I should. I was ready to, grab life by the horns and do things the right way this time. But when I got back home, I was in the same situation that I had left. And I didn't give myself enough support. Probably should have hit like a halfway house kind of in between situation, but I didn't.
Mhm.
I did learn a lot in treatment though. So once my relationship did eventually fall apart, I relapsed. I moved to Medicine Hat, where I kind of just continued my little partying phase in more of like a pity point at this point, because I wasn't working, I was staying home, I was drinking during the day, drinking at all hours. It got to the point where I ran out of money. I didn't have a job. I wasn't suitable to hire anywhere really. And I just kind of hit my lowest of lows. And, I was all of a sudden that person that was showing up at 10 o'clock in the morning and putting my change down at the liquor store, to buy whatever I could, to physically like soothe that need, for liquor, because it became from starting from this party lubricant, it now had become something that had totally ruled my life, and took away all of my freedoms. So I just did that for, as long as I could physically do it, in and out of the hospital to, detox just enough to get you by. And then as soon as you're out of that hospital, you think you feel like $1,000,000. So you're ready to go do it again. That was probably the most desperate and the most, hopeless that I ever felt, was that I was actually physically ill from this substance that I was addicted to, but my body needed it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So do you come from a family of alcoholism, or how did, or did it just progressionally happen with you? Because most of us that do have an addiction to alcohol or a drug or a substance of some sort, it runs in our family. And then there's triggers all throughout our whole life, and then just eventually it just catches up to us, because I know personally that it does run in our family. And when it came to me quitting, I was quitting for my children, for everything. I was not going to continue, to have this go on. So I was the one that ended this addiction, because there's no way I was going to have anybody go through what I went through. So was that your case too, or what are your thoughts on that?
Not so much. Like my mother came from a very alcohol riddled family,
Right.
where my grandmother was abusive, and addicted. But my mother was very much the person to take the higher road, and my parents rarely drank, and they raised me amazingly. It wasn't something that I was influenced by, I'd say, until like my early teens, when I was around friends, small town, nothing to do.
I know,
So
I hear you with that small town. Yeah, that's where it
yeah.
starts, right?
And I mean, I think the kicker was that I was very resentful towards my grandmother, because I had gone to visit her in my early teens and saw what kind of life she was leading, and was like repulsed by it, and was, I would never do that, and I would never make those decisions, and I would never end up where she was. But looking in the mirror at my lowest of lows, like that's exactly where I was.
Yeah, see,
And
that is so correct, because I did the exact same thing. I had so much resent towards my brother who abused me and everything too, right? And I was like, I'm not going to be like him. You know what I mean? Just everything. But what happened? I turned exactly into that individual. And
yeah.
and you turned into your grandmother. And isn't that just a real eye opener? The person that you dislike the most, and the one and whatever you focus on becomes a reality, right?
Mhm.
And even though you didn't want to focus on your grandmother, what happened? You ended up becoming your grandmother. It's
Yeah.
crazy, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. And I think that, like, I have a newfound respect for her. She's been gone for quite a few years now, but I do have a newfound respect for her, because I didn't know what situation she was in that led her to that. And
Mhm.
I mean, the way that she grew up, and the lack of support and lack of services that were available to her at that time, it wasn't back then, it wasn't something that you talked about. Like, you
No.
didn't talk about the fact that you never left your house, and you smoke and drank, and like, people just kind of like shut that out, and oh, she's sad, or she's a loner, or like, things were very dismissed, even back in the old days, and more so, as much as they are now. Like, people are like we were talking about, people are depressed, people have mental illness. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety while I was drinking.
Mhm.
Because
But that's what
I
brings it
was.
on. But that's what brings
Yes.
it on, right? And people don't
Yes.
understand that. But
Yes. Well,
you,
and rightfully so, because I mean, it took me how many years to figure out that, I looked for solutions to weight loss. I looked for solutions to all these other problems that I was having without like totally ignoring my main focus that, oh, my drinking can't be causing all this, right?
Denial, right?
Yeah,
Total
100%.
denial. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're
Yeah.
looking for
So,
everything else on the outside world to fix you. And
mhm.
then you don't want to look at the inside because the inside is where it hurts, right? Then you have
Oh,
to
yeah.
show your feelings and your emotions. And just looking at your grandmother and you had to, you got to that place where you can forgive her. And that's how we heal. Because I even look at my brother, and I see what he went through and everything, and I've got compassion towards him. Do I want him in my life forever again? No. But I forgive him, right?
Mhm.
Because I understand, and I relate to what you're saying about your grandmother. And yeah, because if I didn't forgive him, I would be 6 feet under. There's no question.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. Because then you're just fighting demons that
Totally.
just send you into a bit of a spiral. So yeah,
Mhm.
by the time I made that call, I finally had called my parents, and they were to the point where they did not want to hear from me unless I was ready to actually get sober this time.
How old were you at
Uh,
this time, Jessica?
that was almost 6 years ago. So just 31, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm 36 right now. Um, but yeah, I finally made that call, and I gave up everything. I dropped everything. My parents came and picked me up where I was living, drove me home right to the hospital. I had an amazing doctor who was holding a bed for me. I stayed for the whole amount of the treatment for the first time in my life at the hospital, the detox treatment. And my parents took me in, and I started from scratch. I had zero responsibility. They didn't trust me with anything. They breathalyzed me when I left the house. There was a while before I was even allowed to hold down a job or drive my own vehicle. I just surrendered everything because I was to the point where I was like, hey, like I've done it every other way and none of this worked. So I gave it over to them, and they graciously had me in, and got me to the point where I slowly built up. I got a job, and I rented a room off of a lady. I made every single job and every single connection that I made while I was there. I made sure to be very forthcoming with my addiction, and very, because I think years, the whole the whole thing that happened over my whole 20s was that I hid the fact that I was suffering. You want to portray that you have this great image. And in my relationship, my engagement, like I wanted to be that person. But, the amount of pressure and the amount of stress, it wasn't working out. I wasn't willing to admit defeat. And I hid that. I hid that from everyone, from family,
That's
friends,
that's the
employers,
whole
everyone.
chameleon stage, isn't it? You're
Yeah.
trying to fit in, you're trying to be accepted, you don't want to be judged. And yeah, my 30s and beginning of my 40s, very much I was a chameleon. Just trying to fit in, trying to look good. Totally
Yeah.
somebody I was not, you know,
Yeah.
for sure. So what did you learn during that time of stillness? What is the biggest
Um,
thing that you took from it?
I think the biggest thing is that, like, just sitting back and actually taking in all the emotions finally.
Yes.
There were years and years of like my whole adolescence of not really feeling things and actually just, numbing them.
Mhm.
Like, when you got dumped or when you went through something in your 20s or your teens, you drank about it.
Yeah.
And you didn't feel things. You didn't feel grief, or you didn't feel loss, or you didn't feel anything like that. And so when I got sober, my for the last time, all these emotions totally came flooding in. And I think that for people to understand that when you first get sober, it's not unicorns and rainbows. It's all of a sudden you get hit with the reality that you haven't dealt with any of these things in your whole life.
But isn't
And
it funny? Isn't it funny, Jessica, that when you are going through these breakups or whatever is happening in your life, I don't know if you're like me, but you actually really think that you're feeling your feelings. You do at that point in
oh
time.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just kind of like, wow, from then until now, how I express my feelings, no comparison. Like, I was numbing by picking that up and, oh, yeah, being with my girlfriends or, our couples or whatever, even though I was hurting inside, but not really realizing how deeply I was hurting inside. And that
Yeah.
is such an eye opener when you get to the point of sobriety. It's like, wow, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that unfortunately, like a lot of the world still works that way. A lot of people still, whether you're to the extent that I was or not, a lot of people are still numbing their pain by drinking or doing drugs or, laughing it off or going into like a party stage. The only thing that does is, and I mean, I don't realize it, you don't realize it until you do have that wake up call and you are sober and you are dealing with all of your emotions, and it's hard. And a lot of people, that's the point where a lot of people fail, because a lot of people are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, what are all these feelings, and why is it all coming at once? And I thought I was doing a good thing for my life. Why do I feel so crappy? So I think a lot of people turn back at that point, and I have in the past. After I went to treatment, I was ready. I was gonna do the steps. I was gonna, do all the things. But if you're not supported, and I had the support this time from my family, and the checks as well, people checking in with you, like treating you like, obviously not like an adult, because that's not how you deserve to be treated. If you weren't in control of your own life, then you can't call yourself an adult, in my opinion. And that's the way that I was, is like I needed to be treated like a child again. And I also needed that support emotionally, because as those feelings came up, I felt a lot of guilt, and I felt a lot of depression, and I felt a lot of shame.
Oh,
um and I was able to, I guess, not so much work through, like I did work through it eventually, but I think the main thing that I focused on was just identifying that, like, yes, I have shame about this, because this is what I did, and this is who I hurt, and you have to take ownership of that.
mhm.
And like, none of this happens to us. Like, we do these things, and we make these choices. And I think for me, like that, taking a step back, getting sober, journaling, things like that. As corny as it sounds, like that, those are the steps that you have to take to go through, because you have to identify all these feelings that you're feeling that you could have possibly never felt before. I know that I didn't.
The biggest thing is self-awareness, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
huge. That to me is the number one thing, is self-awareness, right? So what is it that you want people out there to know? What,
Um,
when it comes to getting sober, sobriety, all of it. What's the
I
number one thing?
I think, and like I tell everyone, because I'm a very no bullshit person, is that, like, it's hard. Getting sober is not going to be easy. It could take you 5 or 6 or 12 attempts. But the the benefits, like, it. I remember going to one of my first AA meetings, and they told you about the promises, these list of things that you would get, if you just stayed the course and stayed sober and lived your life true. And whether you believe in that or not, or whether you believe in a higher power, it doesn't matter. I I guarantee you that once you get sober and once you start looking at things through a clear lens, once you start making informed decisions and not just reacting to situations, that's when your life totally opens up for you. And
And
it takes,
I agree 100%. Like I look at life now and my life is so happy, so fulfilled. Like I experience life now in so many different wonderful ways compared to when I did drink. Because what stopped me was, oh, well, I'll have a drink, or it was always consumed, having a drink of whatever, you know what I mean? And now that doesn't even come into the picture. And it's like, it just gives you more opportunity to want to go out and do stuff, experience, meet people. There's nothing holding you back, and actually having that one-on-one connection with people that, and it's true conversations because you've got the clarity.
100%. And like, I've never met a boring sober person.
I know,
To
hey,
be honest, like
touche.
we are
Yeah.
all we're all out there and we're giving life 110% now. And
Mhm.
like that was my whole theory, even when I first decided that I was getting sober for good, was that every day I was just gonna make the next day like a tiny bit better than the day before. So it just takes like one step at a time. And for me, like those steps were super tiny to begin with. And then the steps started growing. And, at this point, like I'm 8 months pregnant and I'm due next month. And if someone would have told me that I would have met the man of my dreams, I would have had a happy, healthy life, I would have had a savings account.
Yeah.
I would have been, responsible. I would have been someone that someone would approach to, give advice or give like a talk like this or anything like that. Like if someone would have told me that my opinion mattered, or that, I mattered enough to make a change in someone's life, like I
Mhm.
would have never believed you. Like I would have never believed that I would be, gonna be 6 years sober next month and giving birth to my first child. And none of that seemed attainable. Whereas like the first few steps, like it didn't seem attainable for me to even leave my parents' house. So I
It was
mean,
to me where I was doubting whether I could even get out of the bed, you know?
yes, yes,
And if I did, it was to go get a glass of wine. And it's
yeah,
amazing the transition of where you were to, where we are now. And
yes,
it's just, I know, I totally get what you're saying.
yeah.
Totally
And
get
I
what you're
think
saying.
this whole community of people who have survived addiction and who are thriving now give people so much hope. And they make me fired up about talking about my story and sharing that with other people. And if just one person hears it and decides that, hey, like I have a similar background as her, like I didn't think that I could do it. I still don't think I could do it, but she's doing it, so maybe I can, and that's to me, that makes it worthwhile. And that's something that totally, like, this makes my day, like
Yeah.
like talking about how far I've come, talking about the fact that sober life is exciting. you know
And another thing I want people to really be aware of out there is that whole stigma about, oh, she went to treatment. Oh my goodness. And it's like, no, you should be embracing and you should be saying good for you that you're going to treatment. People go to the hospital, if they've got something wrong with them. So
Mhm.
why is it bad for people to go to treatment? and
Yep.
and people really need to wake up to that, because that is a good thing. And don't disrespect anybody for going to get help. And when
Yep.
they speak of their addiction and they can talk about it openly, that is another amazing thing because they are sharing their story. They want, you and we want to help people. We want them to know that it's okay to express your feelings. And you know what? It's okay that you have an addiction because you've acknowledged it and you're getting help and you're moving forward. And you're just helping so many other people out there that are coming forward. And you can't keep this in the closet. That's
No.
where the big problem is. And that was the biggest thing with me when I started to really open up, and when I wrote my book and I started doing these interviews and book readings, and I was so open and forthcoming about my addiction. And a lot of people that know me, they couldn't handle it because
Yeah.
because they were so worried about their image because they knew me. And it was like, this isn't about you. This is about me. This is about me healing me and me healing hundreds of people out there if I have that chance. And that's the real purpose of life, I do believe. You know?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't help each other, through things like this, then who are we?
Well, that's
We're not.
exactly it, right? That's exactly it. And it's, you speaking your story, me speaking my story, that's the only way we're going to learn. That's the only way that we're going to grow. That is the only way that we are going to get more help out there for people that do have addictions, that do have mental illness, because Canada is in big trouble, big trouble, seeking help for that. And that's just a really sad state of affairs. It's horrible. So you know what? If we got to do it by talking to each other and putting it out on podcasts or talking about it as we're walking, run into somebody in the grocery store, then, let's do it. Let's help each other heal for sure. So where are you now, Jessica, in life?
I have a week of work left at the pub that I work at.
Good for you. Yeah, look at it. You're working in the environment, right?
I still work at a pub, and I've been asked on multiple occasions how I do that, and because I am forthcoming with my addiction. And I think I've definitely touched a lot of people that are going through that same situation, because I'm putting my face out there. I'm putting a face to addiction, and I am so grateful for everything that I have right now. And it wouldn't be here if it weren't for people like you, people in AA rooms, people in counseling rooms, counselors, peers, everyone who is willing to share. I'm just honestly, I owe everything to all those people who have showed up and shared their stories and showed me that I could do the same. So that's why I continue to do things like this. Right now, I'm over the moon excited to become a mom, and I have bad days too. There's not.
Don't we all?
That's
man.
The thing is, when you get sober, your days, you still have bad days. It's just that, man, the best days that I had drinking are my worst days sober. So, it's I guess right now.
I put a post out there. I don't know, it would have been a few months ago now. And I'm like, if you don't think that there are days where I'm so angry and upset that I don't want to pick up a drink, because there are days that I do. Of course I do. But you know what? I don't. And that's the thing that counts. I don't. I can recognize it. But you telling me? I get so angry some days, and it's you want to throw in the towel, but it's like, no way, man. No way. I've come too damn far, And I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm going to stay sober no matter what, right? And that's my trophy.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I don't know about you, but I've never just had one drink, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what that would feel like. People
I'm
always
talking
ask
one
me,
bottle here. No.
Oh, why can't you just have one drink? Well,
I know.
In my whole life, I've never just had one drink, so I don't know how I would start that now.
Well, Jessica, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast and sharing your story. And I do have to say, just by looking at you, I think you're going to have a girl. even though you don't know what it is, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, I think it's a girl. So,
My boyfriend really wants a girl, so
okay. So I'm going to find out in the next month to see whether you had a girl or a boy. So,
yeah.
I'm so excited for you. I'm excited that you're going to be done work in a week and you're going on your next journey now of being a mom and good for you, Jessica. Congratulations and
Yes.
thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Have a good day, Jessica.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.